So I had to restart this because in the beginning of it, there was a lot of cursing going on. It was saying, "You're an effing idiot. You came all the way out here from Kazakhstan just to see Shafkat, only to get kicked out. You're an effing idiot," as the guy is saying that is recording this right now. So, yeah, just a little interesting turn of events at the UFC 310 fight night. Obviously, I've done reactions to the fight night and everything that had happened, the full card, the main event, co-main event. But of course, there's always interesting aspects that are going on around the fight. Like, for example, fights in the stands. This happens a lot in baseball games, happens a lot in football games, especially if you're a Raider fan. But yeah, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk a little bit about the event, and we're also going to talk about Syria, which is a hot topic story right now that is going on. So while the rest of the world was celebrating UFC 307, I'm sorry, UFC 310 in December 7th, just on the other side of the world, which became December 8th, literally on the same date, same time as all of this is going on, rebels in Syria started taking over the Syrian regime. And we never thought this would happen. Let's take a look. What it seems is that there's people celebrating in the streets. There's gunfire, celebrating, people driving around, yelling certain political slogans, waving the flag of the Free Syrian Army, by the way, which is not really the official Syrian flag. That's more of the rebels' flag. Okay, but there's obviously a lot of different factions that have gone on in Syria for 10 years now. And we're going to talk all about that because this right here, look at this. They got RPGs, they got tanks. What does this mean for the stability of the world right now? And especially that we have a new American regime as well. You got to think there's something that could happen here. But what is that? And we're going to find out. Now, the third story I wanted to cover, not really political to any degree, but it does involve the UFC and Dana White and the man who's going to become 47, who used to be 45. Well, anyways, his dad, or his son rather, Barron Trump, the son of a gun, literally a son of a gun, 45 and 47. I mean, it doesn't get any more son of a gun than that. So this is an article from New York Post talking about how, oh, this is going to freak out the supporters that Dana White asked, or I'm sorry, Donald Trump asked Dana White if Barron can be a fighter. And I say, why not? We're going to talk about all of those things. We're going to talk about Merab, the street fight. Actually, it's not even Merab in the first place. It was actually his corner. And the reason why I even wrote that in the first place was because you don't know his corner, but you know Merab. But at least I'm going to make it clear for you right now that it was not Merab who got in a street fight, that it was his corner. And we're going to talk about that clip that we just saw and what does all that mean. But we're also going to talk about the Syrian rebels taking over Damascus and what does that mean. And this right here, 17-year-old Barron Trump, a potential UFC fighter. We're going to talk all about it. Stay tuned. So backstage, here it is. Aljo and Evloev just got into a war, fought inside the cage. Obviously, it went to the decision of Evloev, and that was that. But there was something going on in the stance. Now, obviously, it was supposedly a fan of Shafkat, according to the video and what I heard. Now, I didn't want to play the audio because there was a lot of cursing going on, and I just didn't want to add that into, So he was saying, you spent all this money to come down here and see Shufcott only to get kicked out. I mean, how dumb are you? Look, you got to understand how expensive UFC tickets are, right? Especially in Vegas, especially in big cities. And he got kicked out while flying from somewhere else. And we're talking about Kazakhstan, right? He flew all the way from Kazakhstan all the way to Las Vegas, all for what? Just to get kicked out? I mean, that's really what it comes down to, right? So, again, Merab, he didn't get involved in any of this, but Merab does have a history of getting involved in scuffles outside of the cage, especially with fans, because fans in the MMA world, I'm sorry to say, they're very toxic. A lot of them don't have anything positive to say. Many of them, I mean, live in their mom's basement. Look, I don't like to use this as a cliche, but there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, I try to do this thing where I just invite any random person to come on. Like, I'm talking about like random, fans on the page and all that, right? All of a sudden, this idiot starts playing music, and you're not supposed to do that. And then it's just like, I don't know, man. A lot of these people, I'm not gonna say they're scumbags, but man, they totally live a different spectrum of life. Let me just say that, okay? And then you're going out there and getting into a fight with them. Sean O'Malley said it best regarding MMA Guru talking smack about every fighter. Like, how do you get mad and triggered at somebody that you can beat up when you know that you're a top level fighter? But that's really what it is, and that's the name of the game by the end of the day. Either way, there's bigger things to worry about around the world, right? Like, for example, what's going on in Syria right now. I showed you guys earlier that the Syrian rebels have now taken over the Syrian regime. Now, I need you guys to understand that this rebel group is not the Islamic State. It is not the FSA or the Al Nusra or other rebels. And by the way, back in 2014, the entire spectrum of alliance in Syria was just a mix and match. It was more confusing than LA gang politics, to be quite honest with you. But as years went on and as years went by, from 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24, there have been a lot of changes and there have been a lot of fighting and slowly chipping away at the strength of the Syrian regime. Now, the Syrian regime had everything under control. It started from the Arab Spring, right? All of a sudden, all these different governments around the Arab Spring started changing, except for Syria. Syria was the only one that was holding everything down until different groups started coming in. Some of those groups were fighting with each other, but their main enemy and their main ops of this whole entire operation was the Syrian regime. And by the way, what's crazy is they had Armenian gang members back in 2014 come and fight for, guess who? The Syrian regime. There was a point where obviously the Islamic State had fallen. They had a bit of their difficulties, especially during the Trump administration. And as a result of that, well, the Syrian rebels, the Free Syrian Army, was the only one remaining at this time, and maybe perhaps a whole bunch of different factions over there that we may not know of. Because remember, in 2014, it was big news. Before you know it, it was a forgotten war that nobody really remembered. There was the fall of the Afghan regime back in 2021. There was all these other different situations that were going on, such as Yemen. There was situation going on in Libya. There's just a lot of situation going on in the Middle East. But by the end of the day, you can't continue to put yourself in these fighting situations that Bashar al-Assad had put himself into. And as a result, those rebels chipping away slowly every year, every day, every week, and every month, and then just going into year after year after year after year, it just basically became a situation that we are witnessing right now. So who knows? But what is Donald Trump going to do when he's in office? Well, we don't know yet. That remains to be seen because he has to be sworn in again in order for him to really take any action. Now, he can plan from here on. He can sort of dictate, hey, you know what? I want these guys when I'm in office. I want this guy to be in this position. I want this guy to be here and this and that. But by the end of the day, he's not in office yet, and everything is just speculation for now. But speaking of speculation, how about this? The New York Times article that I was showing you guys earlier, okay? Now, I showed you guys that New York Times article earlier about Barron Trump, right? A video clip of President elect Donald Trump and his son Barron speaking with UFC Dana White went viral Wednesday as the social media users noted that it was the first time they had ever heard of the 18-year-old's voice. The 17-second clip from the documentary series The Art of Surge, which chronicles Trump's most recent presidential campaign, shows the president-elect introducing his youngest son to White on election night. "How are you?" he says. "It's very nice to meet you," Barron says to a woman off camera, shaking her hand before he turns his attention to the UFC boss. So Trump notes that his towering son, by the way, he's 6'7". You guys seen what's his name? Volkov tonight. 6'7" Russian. These guys, I mean, he's Russian and he's a Trump and he's 6'7". He's got a soccer background, maybe. So very popular among his young supporters. Yeah, he's been popular as of late, especially now that he's growing into a man. He's sort of used as this media prop to make Trump look good, and make his dynasty look good. All of that, right? So I gave him a shout out last night, and place went crazy. Barron, Trump tells White, possibly referring to the campaign rally. Barron then reaches over to shake Dana White's hand. "Hello, how are you? It's very nice to finally meet you," the once and the future first son says. The president-elect appears surprised that the two had never met before. Then he asked White, who introduced Trump at the Republican convention earlier this year, "Can we make him into a fighter?" This is what Donald Trump asked. Now, I got to tell you, a lot of people would look down on this, right? But hey, understand this. The son of Ramzan Kadyrov, the president of Chechnya, all of them fight MMA. So why would this be any different? Think about that. This should not be any different if the son of Chechnya fights MMA. But you know that a lot of people are going to have a problem with this because, let's just be honest, the world of MMA is not really all that advanced as people think that it is. But the quip drew laughs from onlookers and a head shake from Barron, who seemed like he wanted no part of cage fighting. So there you go. He wanted no part of cage fighting because look at where he grew up. But there are people out there that no matter how rich they are, they're down to fight no matter what. But on any regard, this is all that I have for you guys right now. This is my 15-minute video regarding topics of Merab getting into a street fight tonight at UFC 310 in Las Vegas. Syrian rebels taking over Damascus, sort of giving you a brief synopsis on what is going on in Syria from the time of the Arab Spring. And then we talk about Trump's son making it into New York Times regarding a UFC story with him possibly fighting in the UFC. Guess not. He's not interested in it. He lives a totally different life. He wants no part of it. In fact, he grew up playing soccer. Maybe that's what he should do. But either way, like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video, next content. and everything that I do, inshallah.